Reconciliation usually requires a death. And some of you might say, well, that's a good thing. I've got somebody I've been praying that they would die, and I've really been having some issues with them. So I'm really happy to hear that you say reconciliation usually requires a death. Well, guess what? I wasn't talking about the death of the person that you're having issues with. In the story of Jacob and Esau, the death of their father, Isaac, was what was necessary. When Isaac finally died, Jacob and Esau finally reconciled. So reconciliation requires a death, and we're not supposed to be praying for the death of the person that we're having issues with. We're actually supposed to be praying for our own death. So when I say reconciliation requires a death, I'm saying reconciliation requires you to die. And I don't mean it literally. I'm just talking about what Jesus says in Luke when he says you need to take up your cross daily and follow me. So daily we need to learn to die to ourselves, to die to our own desires. So what does that look like? It's going to look different for all of us. We all need to die to something. Maybe you need to die to a critical spirit. Are you critical of others? Do you have trouble maybe walking into an office or a church or a family function and not picking out all the different problems with everybody else? Well, guess what? We're not responsible for everybody else. We're responsible for ourselves. So although it'd be nice for everyone else to die to themselves, you're responsible to die to yourself. So why is it so important to have reconciliation? Well, in Romans 12, it tells us that we need to have unity with the body. If at all possible, so much as it depends on you, be at peace with all men, is what it says. So you need to be at peace with all men. Why do we need to be at peace with all men? Because they're going to know us, Christians, by the way we love one another. So are you really loving when you're being critical of others? I spend a lot of time and energy being wrong, and I think in order to die to yourself, this one's for me, I need to die to being right. If you have a good marriage, you've learned to die to being right. Either one or both of you has learned to die to being right. Being right is not worth it. I just talked to somebody the other day who is engaged, and they were telling me that somebody, their spouse or their fiance was late, and they said, I can't believe they were late. And I said, well, don't worry about being right on this one. Just try to understand where she came from on this one. Same thing. Oftentimes you just need to look at what that person is coming from, where that person is coming from. So oftentimes a person has a background that makes them the way they are. So maybe somebody comes in and they're in your face and they're angry, and you're like, wow, I'd really like to hurt this person, or I'd really like to do something unchristian to this person. And then you talk to somebody else and you realize that person just went through a tough tragedy. Their dad died in a car accident or something like that. So instead of spending all of our energy trying to be right, what I'm telling you is try to spend some of that energy in debating and trying to be right and trying to gossip and all that kind of stuff. Spend some of that energy on trying for reconciliation. And how do we reconcile things? By dying to ourselves. Is being right really worth it? You can always be right, or you can work for unity. Assume the best. Reconciliation requires a death. In essentials, unity. In non-essentials, liberty. In all things, charity. If possible, so far as it depends on you, be at peace with all men. Romans 12:18.